I've seen people out of auto claims denied for the most terrible things, little things. People have had claims turned into nightmares over he said, she said, and had excess stress, frustration, and pain. You should know these 5 things that you should do in the event of a car accident. Welcome back to another episode of Financial Ginger. I'm your host, Jacob Johnson. I've been an insurance agent for nearly 8 years, and this is what I recommend you do anytime you're in a car accident to make sure your claim is watertight, make sure it is dealt with as fast as possible. And this is in response to training I've received as an agent and dealing with some pretty crazy claims that have gone sour for both clients of mine and those who have filed claims against clients of mine. I work in Utah. So if you want a code review, my content information is on basically every social media platform this will be on, except Spotify. Hello, Spotify listeners. So yeah, let's get into it. First, I want to say if you are in any sort of car accident and there's an emergency event where someone has been injured, where hospital potential sort of thing, like call 911, do that first. That's the most important thing, is to make sure people's lives are taken care of. But after taking care of life and the concern for people being injured or that sort of thing, this is what you should do. So first, prioritize safety. So I always say when you get in an accident, if it's in a high speed zone or something where it could cause more accidents or you're in the way, pull off to the side of the road, put your hazard lights on if at all possible. It's especially important on high speed roads, and then check for injuries. So if you've got passengers in your car, small children, whatnot, right? Check for injuries first to see if someone needs an accident. So that's the first thing. Prioritize your safety. Second, I always recommend getting a police report. Ideally, the police should come to every incident, no matter how small, but sometimes they just won't come. The police just refuse to come. Police aren't perfect. Sometimes they make mistakes on the reports and all that, but it can always help do a couple things. It can prove that the accident actually happened, right? There are sometimes where people don't get a police report, don't take photos, and then file a claim. And then the other person's like, oh, well, that never happened. And all you've got is a scrape on your bumper. And suddenly you don't have a claim. Getting the police there can prove that the accident actually happened, especially for minor incidents. Also, the police will make a statement. They'll get a statement from each of you about what has happened. And so people can't be wishy-washy about things later, or I suppose as wishy-washy. Next, I say you should get proper insurance information. The police will make sure that that happens too. They'll take down names, addresses, phone numbers, license plate numbers, VIN numbers, insurance ID card, ID information, carrier information, and phone number for those carriers. Sometimes people will be like, oh, I'm with some unknown company out east and there's no phone number and I can't find one online. The police will help to ensure that that information is on a form. So it's just get easier. So I recommend always getting the police there. Even if the police refuse to come because it's like Walmart parking lot, 2-mile-an-hour bumper thing, which I still recommend getting a police report for, at least request a police incident number noting the address and some details about what happened, just because that will help validate the accident because it's been documented with the police. It will save you all sorts of headache later. Just a story about why it's important to get a police report. When I was younger, my mother had an incident getting off the 800 North freeway exit in Orem, Utah. It was really late at night. There were no other cars around. My mom, well, presumably had a green light, and so she just kept going. And another car came from under the bridge, under the freeway, under the overpass, and hit my mom. And at the time, right, they were like, oh, let's file an insurance claim. Here's my insurance information. They didn't get a police report. Well, the next day, the person changed the story, and it was, no, I had the green light, and you had a red light. Okay, now it's a he said, she said situation. There's no police report. There's no video camera footage. There's no witnesses. There's nothing. It's literally he said, she said, and now it's a 50-50 at-fault claim because now, well, they're both insisting they had a green light. There's no third party to verify what happened, and now suddenly my mom is screwed for both her deductible and being surcharged for a partially at-fault accident, right? 50% at fault. Insurance companies are going to surcharge for that. So, I mean, obviously I don't know what happened, right? It's all allegedly because this was when I was a kid. But getting a police report, they can verify both of you at the time. It makes it a little bit harder to change the story later, even if there is a dispute. It might make it easier for you to prove it was the other party's fault, so that you're not out a deductible and a surcharge on your insurance for 3 to 5 years. Another example about why it's important to get a police report. One of my friends, they got hit by a semi on the freeway. It was a low speed collision, but it did cause significant damage, ripped the bumper off of her car. And of course, the semi's solid metal rear end, so it didn't really, cause much damage. But the person tried to leave. They basically fled the scene. Thankfully, they were able to get a picture of the license plate, but it made it hard to identify who the driver was because it's a commercial vehicle, all sorts of things. And it was a nightmare process. Like, I think that might still be ongoing. And that was like 6 months ago, because it was also hard to find the insurance carrier's phone number. It was some random warehouse in like Ohio that never answered the phone. And then it ended up being it just made, and I spent hours calling around trying to help this person figure it out, because there wasn't a police report at the time the accident occurred. It made it so much more difficult to track down who the insurance carrier was, what the phone number was, them to even verify a claim happened, because they had to figure out who was driving that vehicle on that day at that location. So getting a police report is super, super important. And then even if the person does flee and they're not able to figure out who it is, it makes it very clear to your insurance carrier that it was a hit and run, right? So it's very clear, this is not my fault. So you're not going to get a surcharge, even if you do end up having to pay your deductible. So there's just a few stories about why it's super important to get a police report. So we've already got first one, prioritize safety, right? 911 if appropriate. Always get a police report. I always get a police report. Third, photographs. I recommend to photograph everything. Pull out your cell phone, take pictures of driver's licenses, of license plate numbers. Take a picture of the VIN number in the front windshield of the other vehicle. Get pictures of the street that it occurred on, the weather conditions. Is it raining? Was it sunny? Insurance cards, if they show them to you, like literally anything you can think of that might be important. Traffic signs, mile markers if it's on a freeway. Anything that can make it easier for you to show what happened. And also it can help you remember what happened when you review a photo that you took a little bit later. Because sometimes it takes a day or two for an adjuster to call you back. And then it's, oh, what exactly happened? It's not as clear. So it's never a bad idea to document, because it can help accompany the police report to verify what actually happened and how it happened. Sometimes having a photo of what the damage was. Here's a crazy story. We had a lady that bumped into someone in a parking lot at Walmart, right? Just like they were backing up, hit the car. The person wasn't there. They left their phone number and confirmation on it, right? They waited a few minutes. They're like, this is the thing I'm supposed to do. And then they left. She didn't take photos, right? And you'd think, why? That's so silly. Like, I barely scraped their bumper. It's going to cost a couple $100. Who knows what it's going to cost actually. But the lady that she hit later, after going to a repair shop, was like, oh, here's all these damages on the side of her car, damages to the windshield. And she's like, how could I have damaged these things? I tapped the front of her car. And at the end of the day, it was really ridiculous, but the insurance ended up paying for everything. She wanted to just pay out of pocket to avoid having an insurance claim go on her record, right? She's an elderly lady. Legally speaking, if you collide with someone, they are allowed to use your insurance, even if it's for $50, which is ridiculous. But no, it's not ridiculous. It's to protect people. But it can be ridiculous to you, who's getting surcharged for $100 paint scratch. But right, it's annoying when it's like, I didn't cause these damages and my insurance is having to pay for it. So documenting, no matter how small, can be really helpful. So hopefully that's helpful to you guys. Fourth thing I recommend, never admit fault. I had the stupidest thing happen to someone. He was in a McDonald's drive-through, right? Wasn't paying attention, lightly bumped someone's bumper. It probably was a nothing burger. I think even after the police report came back, it was like no damage. He got out of his car, offered the guy $100 to not have to deal with insurance. The guy was like, no, we want the police to come because there was a collision. Smart, good for them. He goes over the side of the drive-through, bumps out over the great leaves, flees the scene. And now suddenly he's got a fleeing the scene of an accident ticket on his driving record, even though he doesn't even have an at-fault claim because the damage was so minor, the other party didn't even file a claim. Like, that's how stupid it is to not just get the police there, take photos. Yeah, and because he offered money, that is considered admitting fault. So I recommend not admitting fault. Obviously, in that situation, my client was at fault. But if you offer someone money, in fact, in some situations, even saying, oh, I'm so sorry that I hit you, you've admitted fault right there. And if that's recorded or on video or something, You might be found at fault even if you might not have otherwise been. You never know what laws, like maybe there's a certain rule about stop signs in your state or about yield signs or about roundabouts that maybe you think you're at fault, but it really is the other person's fault. It's hard to know. Let the insurance companies figure that afterwards. I suppose if you really don't care, right? It's just trying to help you out to avoid being at fault in a situation where you might not be. Basically, don't admit fault. Don't apologize. Don't make accusations. Just get the police report, take your photos, let them figure it out, and they'll go from there. So it's a silly situation, but really never admit fault. The next one that I want to talk about is filing a claim in a timely manner. Most insurance companies have a rule about how long you should wait to file a claim, how it should be prompt, and if it's not prompt, it could make a claim not as valid. And right, filing a claim isn't like the commercials. You don't clap twice and Jake from State Farm appears, like that's just not how insurance works. Most of the time when you file a claim, you can do it by calling your agent. You can do it online. You can do it by calling a 1-800 number. There's usually multiple ways to do it. When you file the claim, you're going to talk to a customer service rep. You're not going to talk to a claims adjuster. They're not going to tell you what is and isn't covered. They're worried about, are you safe? What happened? What date? What location? Do you have photos, right? They're going to ask some basic informations. They're going to assign a claims adjuster who's going to call you back in 1 to 3 business days. Usually it's 2 for most insurance companies. Usually it's even 1, but sometimes it's 3 business days. So delaying that can just delay how long it's going to take to get your car repaired, to get a rental vehicle. What if it's repairs that are going to take a month? I had a situation a couple years back. I was hit by someone. It was during COVID. Parts took forever to get there. I had a rental car for almost 2 months. Thankfully, right, the other party was at fault. They paid for that rental car. But if you wait a week to file a claim, that's a week you're going without a car. So I recommend filing a claim as soon as possible because it's going to get your car repaired quicker. It's going to get it into the shops quicker. It's going to get you a rental car quicker if you've got rental on your insurance or if the other party's at fault. So delaying filing the claim is just going to delay how long it takes to get your car repaired. Now, one example of delaying, if the car's still drivable and it's like, right, so I had a really old Prius that was already damaged. It was totaled twice, double branded, salvaged, and I sold it to my dad when I got the Tesla I drive, and he let my sister drive the car. Literally, first trip of the car, drove to California, fell asleep at the wheel, damaged the vehicle. Don't blame her, don't blame right. Like things happen. That's what insurance is for. But it was a small enough damage. The car was still drivable and it was already totaled twice previously. It's like, is it even worth getting the car repaired? Ends up being like a $4,000 to $5,000 repair job. My dad's like, do I really want to file a claim? Is it worth being surcharged for an accident for a younger driver? Right? We go back and forth. He had initially told me about the claim immediately. I had told the insurance carrier about it. He ended up waiting 11 months to decide, okay, I'm going to get the car repaired, right? Because it was still drivable. It was all cosmetic damage. Ended up deciding to file the claim. Because he had filed it immediately, they covered it, right? Their rule for that insurance carrier he was with was 1 year. It's like you have to initiate that within 1 year. Every carrier has different guidelines and rules. But I had another situation where their wife like ran over something in a parking lot or something like that. It wasn't super clear. And then like 6 months later, is like, oh, there's damage. We do want to get it repaired. And it was unclear. When did it happen? How did it happen? Was there other things like the damage wasn't lining up? What the story changed between 2 phone calls because, right, she couldn't remember exactly what happened because it had been 6 months. And the insurance company, after talking to them, and again, I don't know all the details. Every situation is unique. I'm just giving broad overview. After reviewing all, the insurance company was like, look, this looks like fraud. This doesn't look like damage actually occurred to your vehicle. The body shop, the report's not conclusive how this damage occurred. This may have been there before you bought the vehicle used. This may have been recent. It's hard to know what happened. They didn't stop, take photos, get a police report at the time, tried to file a claim 6 months later. It resulted in basically the claim being denied, right? So these are tools to help you understand you need to file a claim in a timely manner, or at least report it to the insurance company in a timely manner so that there isn't problems with your story's changed. You don't remember exactly what happened and an insurance company deciding they don't want to file a claim. And what's your recourse at that point? Thankfully, it wasn't too much damage. It's very important to be timely, especially with home claims, but that's a different video. So who do you file the claim with, right? This is where you need to make a judgment call on who's at fault. And the reason I mention this is because if you are at fault in an accident and it's a solo accident, like you run into a tree or hit your garage door or something, and it's a small amount of damage, and you decide, you know what, I'm going to pay for this out of pocket. It's only $1,000. I don't want to have a claim surcharge because I backed up and broke my rear view mirror backing out of my garage, or whatever the small situation is. Some companies will surcharge you for just filing a claim. They'll say, well, you obviously had a claim incident that's indicative of risk, even though they paid $0 to you, though technically they had an adjusting claim payout, which that's a whole separate thing, but you can get surcharged for just filing the claim, even if you don't go through with the claim. So that's why I say, who should you file a claim through, and is it worth it? If it's really, really small, go to a body shop first, see how much the damage is. You can make a determination, do I want to file the claim? Obviously, if another party's involved, it might be out of your hands. But if it's solo, you might want to check on that. Anyways, back to the claims. So, right, step 5, file a claim in a timely manner. Who do you file the claim with? In your mind, consider who's likely at fault. Obviously, don't admit fault at the scene, but who's at fault? If you're at fault and it's very obvious it's your fault, you need to file a claim on your own insurance. If it's extremely obvious the other party is at fault, file a claim on their insurance. If you have medical bills, right? If you're going to go get seen by a chiropractor or a doctor, which I recommend doing, Utah specifically, in most states, I think 40 plus states out of all 50 states require PIP or medical coverage. It's no fault coverage. So the first $3,000 of medical bills have to come out of your insurance regardless of who's at fault. So if you're going to go see a chiropractor, a doctor to check, like maybe you got some head pain or knee pain or something after in a car accident, even if it's mild, you'll want to file a claim on your own policy regardless for at least medical. Because even if you're not at fault and the other party hit you and you go to the hospital, your policy still needs to pay the first $3,000 of medical bills. So you're at fault, your own insurance. If it's very obvious the other party's at fault, their insurance. But if you need medical, you're going to need to file a claim either way, because your policy is going to end up paying the PIP medical regardless of who's at fault. So hopefully that's a little bit useful. If there's questions about that, feel free to leave a question in the comment. Happy, I review them. I review even Spotify comments, Instagram, TikTok, like wherever you see this, because it's important to me to know what you guys are asking about in relation to auto insurance and home insurance. Okay, 6, bonus step after the first 5. I recommend seeing a doctor, especially since your PIP policy is going to pay the first $3,000 of medicals anyways, unless for some reason you're trying to avoid filing a minimal personal at-fault claim with no other party. It's never a bad idea to see a doctor. In fact, some studies have shown that even at incidents as slow as 5 miles an hour have caused people ongoing migraines, headaches, vision problems, or muscle tension and pain and bone pain. So it's always a good idea to go see a doctor after an incident so that it can clearly be tied to the incident if it's obvious, right? If you wait a year or 6 months, it can become fuzzy what actually happened that caused this, and it can cause that claim to potentially have to go to your personal medical insurance instead of be on the auto insurance claim. So I always recommend seeing a doctor. So those are my 6 steps. So a quick review on them. Prioritize safety, pull over to the side of the road, get out of the way of immediate harm, call 911 if important. Always get a police report, no matter what, even if it's just filing an incident report for a very minor claim. Always take photos, damage, licenses, VIN numbers, insurance cards, where it happened, mileage markers, right? Damage to both vehicles, road conditions, if there's water or slickness that caused someone to slide, take a picture of the ice, anything that can help. Never admit fault. Never admit fault, never flee the scene. File a claim in a timely manner, and my little bonus thing, I recommend seeing a doctor after a claim, even if it's small, just to make sure you're not going to have ongoing or permanent damage that could be avoided by a simple surgery or a neck brace or a chiropractic visit or something like that. So that's a lot of things to think about, especially if your car's totaled. There's even more things to consider if there's claims that are severe enough that you should get an attorney, medical bills, but that's podcast for another day. So let me know if you have any questions about that in the comments below. I review all the comments. If you have questions, feel free to email me, thefinancialginger@gmail.com. My contact information should be in the bio of any location where you're watching this. And let me know what you think and what you do in a claim and if this was helpful to you.